What if the door to enlightenment and the door to madness were the very same door? For decades, the world's most powerful intelligence agencies, from the CIA with its infamous MK Ultra program to the psychic research labs of the KGB, have been obsessed with the untapped explosive potential of the human mind. They poured millions into shadowy experiments, trying to control it, to weaponize it, and in some cases to break it. They failed. They failed because they misunderstood the nature of the ultimate mystical experience. It cannot be controlled or coerced from the outside. It is an inner detonation, a neurological event so powerful it can permanently rewire the very structure of your brain, leading to a state of profound peace and a feeling of unity with all that is. Or it can shatter your reality completely. This is not a metaphor, and this is no joke. Since the dawn of our species, we have been haunted by whispers of another reality, a world that lies just behind the veil of our ordinary perception. The shamans of Siberia, entering ecstatic trances in their firelit yurts. The mystics of the desert, staring into the vast, silent emptiness of the dunes. The philosophers of ancient Greece, contemplating the nature of the soul. They all spoke in their own unique languages of a sacred and sometimes terrifying experience. A moment when the veil of the ordinary world dissolves, and the individual consciousness, the small, separate sense of I, merges with a boundless, timeless, and infinite all. We call these moments mystical experiences. They are the bedrock of every religion, the secret source of our most profound art, and the hidden driving force behind countless lives that were changed forever in a single, silent instant. They are the ultimate human experience, the direct encounter with what we might call God, the universe, or the absolute. But our modern secular world, in its pursuit of a purely material explanation for everything, has tried to file this experience away, to diminish its power. We have attempted to dismiss it as a mere firing of neurons, a temporary chemical imbalance in the brain, a comforting psychological illusion, a harmless fantasy. This is a profound and dangerous misunderstanding. The truth is that these experiences are a form of fire, handled with wisdom, preparation, and immense respect. This inner fire can perform a sacred act of alchemy upon the soul. It can burn away the dross of fear and trauma, temper the steel of your character, and forge your consciousness into a state of enlightened, integrated wholeness. It can permanently rewire your brain for compassion, for peace, and for a deep and unshakable connection to the world around you. But fire, when approached naively, without a proper container, without respect for its immense power, does not just illuminate. It consumes. The very same neurological event that can open the gates of heaven, can, for an unprepared or unstable mind, open the gates of hell. The same dissolution of the ego that can lead to a feeling of cosmic unity can also lead to a complete psychological breakdown, to a terrifying spiritual emergency where the self is not expanded, but shattered. This then is a journey into the heart of that fire. We will explore with unflinching honesty both the luminous promise of enlightenment and the terrifying abyss of the spiritual emergency. This is not a simple guide to feeling good. It is a serious, balanced, and deeply respectful exploration of the most powerful and double-edged sword in the entire human experience, the neurotheology of awe, understanding the mystical experience. To understand the fire that can either forge or shatter the soul, we must first approach it with the careful, respectful eye of both the scientist and the sage. We must ask what, precisely, is a mystical experience? Stripped of dogma and cultural interpretation, what is the raw phenomenological event that has been reported by countless individuals across every culture and every era of human history? It is a phenomenon that by its very nature strains the limits of language, but the great pioneers who have attempted to map this inner territory have identified a set of consistent and profound characteristics. The philosopher and psychologist William James, in his seminal work, The Varieties of Religious Experience, outlined 4 key markers. The first is ineffability. The experience is so profound and so unlike our ordinary state of consciousness that words fail to adequately describe it. It must be directly experienced to be known. The second is a noetic quality. These are not just feelings. The individual comes away with an absolute, unshakable conviction that they have been granted a glimpse into a deeper, more objective, and more fundamental reality. They have not just felt something, they have known something. The third is transiency. These states are almost always temporary, lasting for a few moments, or in rare cases, a few hours. Yet their effects, the memory and the wisdom they impart, can permanently alter the course of a person's life. And the fourth is passivity. The experience feels as though it is happening to you. The conscious, willing ego is not the director of this event. It is a surrendered vessel, and the experience flows through it, often with a power and an intelligence that feels far greater than its own. While these markers give us a philosophical language, modern neuroscience has, in recent decades, begun to provide a stunning biological correlation. The central unifying feature of nearly all mystical experiences is a phenomenon known as ego dissolution. This is the profound and often shocking sensation of your personal separate sense of self, the I that lives in your head, the narrator of your life story fading away. The rigid boundary that you perceive between me and the world becomes porous, and for a moment it vanishes completely. The feeling is not one of annihilation but of expansion, of merging with a greater whole, of becoming one with the room, with the landscape, with the entire cosmos. It is a homecoming to a state of unity that was always present, but was hidden by the illusion of your own separateness. And incredibly, we can now see the signature of this event, written in the firing patterns of the human brain. To understand this, we must understand the brain's default mode network, or DMN. Think of the DMN as the brain's great storyteller, its internal narrator. It is the network of brain regions that is most active when you are not focused on a specific task, when you are lost in thought, ruminating on the past, worrying about the future, thinking about yourself, what others think of you, and where you stand in the world. It is, in a very real sense, the neurological seat of the ego. It is the constant self-referential monologue that generates and sustains your story of being a separate individual me. Now, here is the stunning discovery that lies at the heart of the new field of neurotheology. In studies conducted on individuals in the throes of a profound mystical experience, from advanced Tibetan monks in deep meditation to participants in clinically guided psychedelic sessions, fMRI scans reveal a dramatic and significant decrease in the activity of the default mode network. The storyteller for a moment falls silent. The part of the brain that creates the constant sense of a separate, anxious self goes offline, and in that silence a new perception of reality becomes possible. The ego's monopoly on consciousness is broken, and the brain is free to experience the world not through the narrow, biased filter of a personal story, but as a vast, interconnected and unified whole. Simultaneously, as the DMN's activity decreases, scientists often observe a state of hyperconnectivity across other brain regions. Areas of the brain that are normally separate and highly specialized, like your visual cortex, your emotional centers, and your executive function networks, begin to communicate with each other with an incredible and uninhibited freedom. This is the biological basis for the profound insights and the sense of cosmic unity that characterize the experience. Your brain is for a moment operating with a level of holistic integration that is impossible in its ordinary ego-driven state. It is experiencing the world not as a collection of separate parts, but as a single living and deeply interconnected being. These are not just abstract data points. They are the scientific description of a lived human reality. We hear it in the words of the astronauts who have experienced the overview effect. Edgar Mitchell, upon seeing the Earth from the Apollo 14 capsule, did not just see a planet. He described an instantaneous knowing, a gnosis, that every single thing in the universe was connected, a state of profound blissful unity that he called a samadhi. We see it in the accounts of Zen masters who, after decades of meditation, experience kensho, a sudden awakening where the I drops away and is replaced by a boundless, peaceful and empty awareness. We even see it in the stories of ordinary people who, in a moment of profound connection with nature, or while listening to a piece of soul-stirring music, have been unexpectedly plunged into a state where the boundaries of their skin seemed to dissolve, and they felt a loving, conscious presence in all things. In each case, the story is the same. The narrator in the head goes silent. The illusion of a separate self dissolves, and in that sacred silent space, a new and more profound reality is revealed. A reality of unity, of love, of a deep and intelligent order that is not just a comforting belief, but a directly perceived, self-evident truth. The mystical experience, then, is the brain's own innate capacity to temporarily shut down the program of the ego, in order to allow the user to finally perceive the magnificent unified operating system of the cosmos itself. If this exploration resonated with the part of you that knows there is more to reality than what we see, then our journey together has only just begun. Each week we delve into the profound mysteries of consciousness, from ancient wisdom to modern science, to help unlock the secrets of your own magnificent being. Subscribe and activate the bell to join a community of fellow navigators and seekers. Let's continue to explore the unseen together. The Alchemist's Forge. The science of brain rewiring. A powerful mystical experience does not just create a fleeting change in your state of mind. It is not a mere memory to be cherished. It is a profound and often permanent event that can alter the very structure and function of your brain. To understand this, we must see the brain not as a static, pre-programmed piece of biological hardware, but as the alchemist's forge, a dynamic, living and ever-changing network of immense potential. The raw material in this forge is your neural circuitry, and the mystical experience is the intense, transformative fire that heats this material to a point of profound malleability, allowing it to be hammered into a new and more coherent shape. This is the science of neuroplasticity, the brain's astonishing ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life, an ability that is massively amplified by states of non-ordinary consciousness. This is not a New Age fantasy. The raw, untamed power of consciousness to affect reality was a subject of intense and deeply secret interest to the most powerful and paranoid institutions of the 20th century. During the height of the Cold War, a new and silent battlefield was opened, the battlefield of the human mind itself. Declassified documents have revealed that intelligence agencies, from the CIA to the DIA and the KGB, poured millions of dollars into clandestine programs designed to explore and potentially weaponize the hidden potentials of human consciousness. While programs like MK Ultra focused on the dark arts of mind control and breaking the human will, another, more fascinating project emerged: Project Stargate. For over 2 decades, the American government employed a team of carefully selected individuals, known as remote viewers, in an attempt to use psychic perception for espionage. The goal was to see across the world, to perceive enemy military sites, to find lost hostages, and to describe secret technologies, using nothing more than the power of the mind. The protocols developed for Stargate, often in collaboration with brilliant researchers at the Stanford Research Institute, were in essence a secular, militarized attempt to induce a controlled mystical state. The viewers were trained to enter specific states of deep, sensory-deprived focus, to quiet their conscious, analytical minds, and to allow raw, symbolic and often fragmented data to emerge from the depths of their unconscious. They were, in a very real sense, attempting to systematically silence the ego's default mode network, to allow the brain's hidden, hyper-connected perceptual abilities to come online. While the Stargate program was officially terminated, its declassified records contain numerous instances of startlingly accurate hits, descriptions of Soviet submarine bases, of secret weapons facilities, of political events that defied all logical explanation. Their research, while aimed at weaponization, inadvertently stumbled upon a timeless mystical truth that consciousness, when brought to a state of profound stillness and focus, can operate outside the normal accepted rules of space and time. They proved that the potential for these expanded states of awareness is not a myth, it is a latent human capacity. But they also proved that it is a power that cannot be easily controlled, predicted, or turned into a reliable weapon, for it operates not by the logic of the ego but by the mysterious symbolic language of the soul. The true and benevolent application of this immense power lies not in espionage, but in personal transformation. Modern neuroscience is now confirming what the mystics have always taught, that a single profound peak experience can permanently rewire the brain for the better. The foundational principle of neuroplasticity is simple: neurons that fire together, wire together. A mystical experience is one of the most powerful, coherent, and emotionally significant events a human can undergo. It is a moment where the entire brain is flooded with a sense of unity, of love, of profound meaning, and of awe. This causes a massive, simultaneous, and harmonious firing of neurons across vast networks of the brain, forging new, powerful, and lasting neural pathways. The old fear-based and ego-driven pathways that defined your ordinary state of being are weakened, and a new, more integrated and compassionate neural architecture is literally built in their place. We see this most clearly in the groundbreaking clinical research into psychedelics from institutions like Johns Hopkins, NYU, and Imperial College London. In these studies, individuals, many of whom are facing the profound existential dread of a terminal illness, are given a single high dose of psilocybin in a safe and supportive therapeutic setting. A significant percentage of these individuals report having a classic mystical experience, a complete dissolution of their ego, and a profound sense of merging with a loving universal consciousness. The results are not just a few hours of feeling good, they are life-altering. Months and even years after their single experience, these patients show a dramatic and lasting reduction in depression and death anxiety. Furthermore, they exhibit measurable personality changes, most notably a significant increase in the trait of openness, making them more curious, more creative, and more appreciative of beauty. Their single transient state of unity has been hammered, in the alchemical forge of their brain, into a permanent enlightened trait. This is the science of brain rewiring. It is the process by which the momentary state-dependent glimpse of enlightenment can become a lasting trait-dependent feature of your personality. The experience literally changes your brain, pruning the neural pathways of fear and strengthening the pathways of love. It can quiet the default mode network on a permanent basis, leading to a life with less self-referential chatter, less anxiety, and a more peaceful present moment awareness. It can increase the connectivity between your logical prefrontal cortex and your emotional limbic system, leading to greater emotional regulation and a more integrated sense of self. It is, in the most literal sense, an upgrade to your entire operating system. The mystical experience is the universe's own technology for healing and evolution, a sacred fire that holds the power to burn away the old limited self and to forge a new, more whole, and more magnificent one in its place. Cognitive reframing, the path to enlightenment. The mystical experience in its raw and unadulterated form is a neutral event. It is like a bolt of pure cosmic lightning. It is a sudden, overwhelming, and absolute discharge of informational and energetic potential. The lightning itself carries no inherent agenda of good or ill. Its ultimate effect, whether it illuminates the entire landscape with a flash of breathtaking beauty or shatters the ancient oak tree at the center of the field, depends entirely on the nature of the ground it strikes. The profound and often overlooked secret of the spiritual path is that we have the power and indeed the responsibility to prepare that ground. This is the sacred and essential work of alchemy, the art of turning the leaden soil of our ordinary consciousness into a conductive golden earth that can receive the lightning strike of the infinite and transform its raw power into a permanent life-giving light. This is the path of cognitive reframing. This term, borrowed from psychology, may sound clinical and modern, but it describes a process that is as ancient as the human quest for wisdom. It is the conscious, deliberate, and often difficult work of dismantling the old, limited story of who you think you are, in order to make space for a new, vaster, and more truthful story to be born. The mystical experience is the catalyst that proves the old story is a lie. Cognitive reframing is the disciplined work of learning to live in the new truth it reveals. Without this work, the lightning strike is just a traumatic, confusing, and ultimately unintegrated memory. With it, the lightning becomes the spark of enlightenment. To understand this, we must first understand the two stories. The old story, the default narrative of the human ego, is the product of the brain's default mode network. It is a story rooted in separation. Its central character is the small, isolated, and fundamentally anxious I. The plot of this story revolves around the survival of this character, its history, its wounds, its ambitions, its fears. In this narrative, the world is a separate and often threatening place. Other people are either tools or obstacles, and time is a relentless predator, pulling the character from a past of regret towards a future of anxiety. This story is a necessary tool for navigating the basic challenges of physical survival, but it is a prison for the soul. It is a story that defines you by your limitations, by your history, and by your mortality. The mystical experience shatters this story with a single, irrefutable blast of experiential evidence. In a moment, it reveals that the central character, the separate I is an illusion. It proves that the world is not separate from you, but is a part of you. It demonstrates that time is not a threat, but a fluid dimension of an eternal now. The experience delivers the core truth of a new story, a narrative rooted in unity, in love, and in connection. The plot of this new story is not about the survival of the small self, but about the expression of the great, interconnected self. Its central theme is not fear, but a profound and intelligent love. The path to enlightenment, then, is the practical, step-by-step process of de-installing the old fear-based operating system of the ego and installing this new love-based operating system of the soul as your default mode of being. This is the great work, and it is a work that requires specific, powerful, and time-honored tools. The first and most fundamental of these tools is meditation. In the context of cognitive reframing, meditation is not a practice of trying to get somewhere or to achieve a special state. It is the fundamental practice of letting go. It is the art of sitting quietly and learning to observe the frantic, ceaseless activity of the old storyteller, the egoic mind, without believing it and without being swept away by it. Imagine your stream of thoughts as a powerful, rushing river. For your entire life, you have been a person thrashing about in that river, believing you are the river, carried along by its every current, eddy, and waterfall. Meditation is the revolutionary act of learning to sit peacefully on the riverbank. From this new perspective, you can watch the river of thought flow by. You can see the angry thoughts, the sad thoughts, the anxious thoughts, but you realize, with a dawning sense of profound liberation, that they are not you. You are the silent, still awareness that is watching them. Each time you sit in meditation, you are practicing this disidentification. You are gently and repeatedly weakening the chains that bind your awareness to the old story. You are building the essential psychological muscle of non-attachment, which is the prerequisite for all true freedom. The second great tool is breathwork. If meditation is the art of passive observation, breathwork is a more active, alchemical practice. It is the art of using the body's own primordial energy, the breath, to temporarily override the ego's tight control and to induce non-ordinary states of consciousness. Practices like holotropic breathwork, rebirthing, or even the intense yogic pranayamas utilize deep, rhythmic breathing to alter the chemistry of the brain, quiet the analytical mind, and open a direct doorway to the subconscious and superconscious realms. This is not a replacement for a spontaneous mystical experience, but it is an invaluable training for it. It is like a controlled, practiced demolition of the old ego structure. In a safe and intentional setting, it allows you to practice the experience of ego dissolution, to navigate the strange and powerful currents of the unconscious, and to build the neurological and psychological resilience needed to handle the immense energy of a full-blown mystical event. It familiarizes you with the territory of the abyss, so that when you are unexpectedly plunged into it, you know how to swim. The third tool is mindfulness. This is the art of bringing the serene, detached awareness you cultivate on the meditation cushion into the messy, dynamic, and challenging arena of your everyday life. It is the practice of observing your own inner world, your thoughts, your emotions, your bodily sensations, without judgment as you go about your day. When you feel a surge of anger, you do not become the anger. You learn to observe it as a powerful, fiery energy passing through your field of awareness. When a thought of fear arises, you do not believe it implicitly. You learn to see it as a familiar, conditioned pattern, a piece of the old story playing itself on a loop. Mindfulness is the lantern of awareness that you carry with you at all times. It illuminates the dark, automatic, and unconscious reactions that the old story is built upon, and in illuminating them, it gives you the crucial split-second opportunity to make a new choice. It is the art of catching yourself before you are swept away by the river, and gently, compassionately, returning to the solid ground of the riverbank, the still, silent presence of the witness. Finally, and most critically, all of these practices must be held within the sacred container of intention and preparation. The intention you hold before embarking on any deep inner journey acts as the compass for your soul. An intention rooted in a desire for healing, for truth, for service to a greater good, creates a powerful and protective field around your consciousness. It signals to the deeper, intelligent forces of the universe that you are approaching this work with reverence and respect. Conversely, An intention born of a desire for mere thrill-seeking, for escapism, or for egoic power, can leave you vulnerable to the more chaotic and disorienting aspects of the unconscious. As the alchemists knew, the forge must be blessed before the fire is lit. Preparation also involves educating yourself. It is the humility to read the maps left behind by the great mystics and sages who have walked this path before. To attempt to navigate these profound states with no guidance is an act of profound arrogance. It is the difference between a foolish tourist wandering into a dangerous wilderness without a map, and a prepared mountaineer who has studied the terrain, respects its power, and has the tools to navigate its challenges. The mystical experience is the lightning, the conscious, dedicated, and courageous work of cognitive reframing through meditation, breathwork, and mindfulness, all guided by a sacred and humble intention, is the art of transforming your entire being into a lightning rod. It is the work of preparing your mind and your spirit so that when the lightning of the infinite finally strikes, it does not shatter you. It illuminates you, burning away the old false story of who you are, and leaving you permanently, magnificently, and blessedly rewired for a life of enlightened awareness. The abyss stares back, the dark side of enlightenment. We have journeyed through the luminous promise of the mystical experience. We have seen how it can quiet the anxious ego, how it can rewire the very circuits of the brain for peace and compassion, and how, through the sacred art of cognitive reframing, it can become the cornerstone of an enlightened life. We have spoken of fire in the alchemist's forge, a sacred flame that can purify the soul and temper it into a state of magnificent golden wholeness. But we must, with unflinching honesty, now speak of the other nature of fire. We must speak of its power to consume, to shatter, and to burn the unprepared seeker to ash. The modern spiritual marketplace, in its relentless pursuit of positivity, has committed a grave and dangerous error. It has sold the promise of the light without honoring the profound reality of the darkness. It has offered a map to paradise, but has torn off the section that warns of the dragons, the abysses, and the long desolate wildernesses that lie on the path. The great existentialist philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche gave us the ultimate warning for this stage of the journey. He wrote, "If you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." The mystical experience is precisely this gaze. It is the moment your small personal consciousness stares directly into the boundless, infinite, and often terrifying abyss of the collective unconscious, of raw, unfiltered reality. And in that moment, the abyss always, without fail, stares back. For the prepared mind, for the soul that has done the slow, patient work of building a strong and resilient vessel, this mutual gaze is the beginning of enlightenment. But for the unprepared, for the unstable, for the seeker who is merely chasing a spiritual high, this gaze can be the beginning of a profound and catastrophic shattering. This is the reality of what is known as a spiritual emergency. It is a state of psychological crisis that is not a mental illness in the conventional sense, but is a spiritual awakening that is happening too quickly, too powerfully for the individual's psyche to handle. Imagine your conscious ego as a small, simple house you have lived in your entire life. It has its familiar rooms, its sturdy walls, its solid foundation. It is the structure that gives your life coherence and safety. A spiritual emergency is what happens when a tsunami, the entire vast and overwhelming ocean of the collective unconscious, crashes down upon that small house. The sheer volume of archetypal energies, of transpersonal information, of repressed personal trauma, and of cosmic existential truth is too much for the structure to bear. The walls of the ego shatter. The foundation of one's reality is swept away. The person is plunged into a state that from the outside can look identical to psychosis. They may be flooded with terrifying visions, hear disembodied voices, and lose all ability to distinguish between the inner symbolic world and the outer, consensual world. But there is a crucial difference. In a typical mystical experience, the ego dissolves, but a core, silent witness consciousness remains, observing the experience with a sense of awe and unity. In a full-blown spiritual emergency or psychosis, the ego shatters, and there is no witness left. The person does not just see an archetype, they become possessed by it. They do not have a vision of Christ, they believe they are Christ. They do not see a demon, they believe they are a demon. They have lost their anchor, their center of gravity, and are now being violently tossed about in the great stormy ocean of the unconscious, a terrifying and profoundly dangerous state to be in. But the dark side is not always so loud and explosive. Sometimes it is a slow, silent, and desolate implosion. This is the state that the great Christian mystic Saint John of the Cross so perfectly named the dark night of the soul. This is not the sudden crisis of a spiritual emergency. It is a prolonged, arid, and deeply painful state of being that often occurs after a profound spiritual opening. It is a trial that can last for months or even years. The mechanism is as logical as it is cruel. Having had a genuine mystical experience, having tasted the blissful, ecstatic union with the divine, having seen the world as a single living and infinitely loving whole, you are then returned to your ordinary, limited, separate self. But your old world no longer fits. It is the tragedy of the philosopher from Plato's cave, who has seen the sun, and is then forced to return to the world of shadows. The shadows, the petty concerns of the ego, the mundane tasks of daily life, the pursuit of worldly success, are now unbearable, for he knows they are shadows, but he cannot yet live permanently in the light of the sun. The dark night of the soul is this excruciating in-between state. The old meanings have been stripped away, but a new, stable, integrated meaning has not yet been born. It is a profound state of spiritual depression, a feeling of being utterly abandoned by God, a journey through a vast inner desert, where there is no water, no signpost, no comfort. The old you is dead, but the new you has not yet been formed. It is a terrifying, lonely, and absolutely necessary stage of purification on the authentic mystical path, a burning away of the final, most subtle attachments of the ego. But it is a stage for which modern spirituality, with its focus on instant bliss, has left us utterly unprepared. Why do these dark experiences happen? They happen when the ego is not ready, when the psychological container is too fragile for the immense energy of the experience. Sometimes this is due to pre-existing psychological vulnerabilities that are cracked open by the force of the awakening. But it can also happen to a seemingly stable person if they approach this work with the wrong intention. This is the danger of egoic inflation. This is what happens when the ego, instead of dissolving in the mystical light, manages to co-opt it. The person has a genuine spiritual experience, but instead of it humbling them, it inflates them. They do not realize, I have experienced a state of unity. They believe, I am special, I am a guru, I am a messiah, I have achieved enlightenment. This is the most subtle and dangerous trap of all. The ego has not been dissolved. It has simply put on a new golden and spiritual costume. This leads to a profound lack of empathy, a sense of being above others, and often the abuse of power. The fire of the experience has not tempered them. It has only hardened their most subtle and dangerous illusions about themselves. And so we see that the path of awakening is a true razor's edge. The same energy that can rewire the brain for enlightenment can trigger psychosis. The same glimpse of the infinite that can bring a lifetime of peace can also initiate a long and terrifying dark night of the soul. The same divine light that can dissolve the ego can also be co-opted by it and turned into a mask of spiritual pride. These are not just philosophical concepts. They are real, documented, and profound risks. To ignore them, to pretend that the spiritual path is only one of love and light, is to be a foolish and arrogant traveler, marching blissfully and unprepared into the most dangerous and powerful territory that the human soul can ever know. Navigating the void, a practical guide for the psychonaut. Having gazed unflinchingly into the abyss, having acknowledged the profound and very real dangers that lie on the path of awakening, we are now faced with the most important question of all. How does one navigate this territory safely? How does the modern seeker, the inner explorer, the psychonaut or sailor of the soul, prepare for a journey into these immense and powerful inner worlds? The answer is not found in recklessness or blind faith, but in a combination of profound courage and deep practical wisdom. The ancient traditions that mapped these states did not just describe the destinations. They provided a rigorous set of protocols for the traveler, a sacred art of navigation designed to ensure that the journey is one of transformation, not of trauma. The first, most important, and often most misunderstood of these protocols is this: you must build a strong and sturdy container. Before you can seek to safely dissolve your ego, you must first have a healthy, stable, and well-functioning ego to begin with. This is the great paradox of the spiritual path. We often come to it seeking an escape from the pains and limitations of our own personality. But it is this very personality, this ego, that is the vessel for our journey. You cannot set sail on a vast, stormy, and infinite ocean in a leaky, poorly built raft and expect to survive. The ego is your vessel. It must be strong enough to withstand the immense pressures of the deep, and it must be a safe harbor to which you can return after the journey is complete. This means that the most important spiritual work is often the most grounded psychological work. It is the work of developing a stable sense of self, of learning to manage your emotions, of cultivating healthy and supportive relationships, of having a life grounded in meaningful work and earthly responsibilities. To use these profound ego-dissolving experiences as a way to bypass or escape your unresolved psychological wounds is an act of extreme foolishness. The fire of the mystical experience will not burn away your unhealed trauma. It will magnify it 1,000-fold, shattering the fragile container and leaving you adrift in the chaos of your own unfaced demons. The first rule of navigating the void, therefore, is to build a strong and beautiful boat right here in the ordinary world. The second rule is one of profound humility. Respect the traditions and study the maps. You are not the first person to embark on this journey. The path into the inner cosmos has been walked for millennia, and the great mystics, sages, and shamans of the past have left behind a rich and detailed library of maps, of warnings, of techniques. To ignore this accumulated wisdom is an act of immense arrogance. It is the equivalent of a modern tourist attempting to climb Mount Everest in a t-shirt, armed with nothing but their own misplaced confidence. This means finding a tradition, a lineage, a school of thought that has a map for these states, and studying it with the dedication of a true apprentice. It may be the path of depth psychology, immersing yourself in the work of Carl Jung to understand the language of archetypes and the process of integration. It may be a contemplative tradition like Zen Buddhism or Vipassana, which provide a rigorous, time-tested, and incredibly safe method for gently observing and understanding the nature of the self. It may be the path of shamanism or the esoteric wisdom of the mystics like Saint John of the Cross, who wrote the definitive guide to the dark night of the soul. And if possible, it means finding a real human guide, a wise Roshi, an experienced transpersonal psychologist, a grounded shaman, someone who has navigated the terrain themselves and can hold a safe, compassionate, and knowledgeable space for your own journey. You do not want to be navigating the abyss with nothing but a pamphlet. Respect the masters who have walked before you. The third and most crucial rule is the art of integration. This is the sacred and often neglected work that you must do after the journey is complete. The mystical experience is not a destination, it is an initiation. It is a sudden, massive influx of energy and information. The real work begins when you return, and you are faced with the challenge of grounding that energy and weaving that information into the fabric of your daily life. Without proper integration, the experience can remain a beautiful but useless memory at best, or a disorienting, destabilizing force at worst. The art of integration is a gentle and patient process. It is the work of journaling, of giving language and form to the ineffable, of trying to capture the symbolic whispers of the experience before they fade. It is the work of creative expression, of processing the immense archetypal energies through art, through music, through dance, giving the formless a form. It is the sacred and simple act of spending time in nature, of walking barefoot on the earth, of allowing the chaotic cosmic energies to be grounded and harmonized by the simple healing rhythms of the natural world. And most importantly, it is the work of talking with trusted guides and community, of having a sane and compassionate witness who can help you make sense of the experience without pathologizing it on one hand, or inflating your ego with it on the other. This is the slow, patient, and humble work of the alchemist, gently tending to the fire, carefully shaping the heated metal, and allowing the raw, chaotic energy of the revelation to be forged into the beautiful, stable, and useful form of a new, more whole and more enlightened self. The courage to see. And so we arrive at the end of our journey, at the final, humbling, and awe-inspiring truth. We have seen that the mystical experience is a real, measurable, and profound neurological event, a sacred fire that holds the power to rewire the very circuits of our being. We have seen how this fire, when contained within a vessel of wisdom, preparation, and intention, can lead to the enlightened path of cognitive reframing, forging a personality of profound peace, compassion, and unity with all that is. We have also, with unflinching honesty, gazed into the abyss that stares back, acknowledging the very real dangers of this path, the shattering crisis of a spiritual emergency, the long, arid desert of the dark night of the soul, and the subtle, poisonous trap of egoic inflation. The mystical experience is a double-edged sword because it reveals an absolute and often terrifying truth that you are infinitely more powerful, infinitely more vast, and infinitely more responsible for the nature of your reality than you have ever been taught. For a soul that has done the slow, patient work of building a strong and humble vessel, of preparing the ground of their own being, this revelation is the beginning of true enlightenment. It is the ultimate liberation. But for a soul that is not yet ready, for a psyche that is still too fragile, this same truth can be a shattering, unbearable burden. The light can be too bright, the void too vast, the responsibility too immense. The final message then is not one of fear but of profound respect. The path to awakening is real. The dangers are real, but the promise of a life lived in a state of unshakable peace, of profound authentic purpose, and of a deep, loving and unbreakable connection to the very heart of the cosmos, is also utterly and completely real. The great work of a human life is not to recklessly chase after flashes of cosmic light. It is to engage in the slow, patient, and often unglamorous art of becoming the kind of person who is ready for the light when it arrives. It is the work of building your container, of studying the maps, and of learning the sacred art of integration. The door to the infinite is always present, in the silent space between two thoughts, in the breathtaking beauty of a sunset, in the depths of your own heart. The question is not whether you can open it. The question is, have you done the work to become the kind of person who can withstand the magnificent, the terrifying, and the world-altering light that will come pouring through?